History is usually written by the victors, but in America, it was written by the marketing department. Every dusty textbook, every towering granite monument, and every catchy patriotic slogan was part of a centuries-long PR campaign designed to make the past sound cleaner, nobler, and a lot less awkward than it actually was. Behind every polished legend is a cover story, a myth carefully engineered to sell national pride rather than the messy, complicated truth. Today, we're unpacking the fine print of that sales pitch. We're diving deep into 10 famous stories that America has been proudly, confidently, and hilariously wrong about since day one. We're moving past the greatest hits version of history and looking at the uncut footage. Let's get into the myths that built a nation. Number 1. The Stealthy Rider, the Paul Revere fabrication. "The British are coming! The British are coming!" It's the most famous line of the American Revolution, supposedly screamed by Paul Revere as he galloped heroically through the Massachusetts countryside. It's a scene that screams movie trailer, but if Revere had actually done that, the revolution might have ended that night with his arrest. Revere was on a secret intelligence mission. Massachusetts in 1775 was crawling with British patrols and Loyalist sympathizers. Screaming at the top of his lungs in the middle of the night would have been tactical suicide. His actual warning was whispered to specific contacts. "The regulars are coming out." Furthermore, the image of Revere as a lone hero is a complete romantic exaggeration. He was just one part of a sophisticated alarm and muster system involving dozens of riders. In fact, Revere didn't even finish the ride. He was captured by a British patrol partway through. It was actually Samuel Prescott, a man history barely remembers, who successfully carried the message all the way to Concord. So why do we know Revere's name? Because 86 years later, a poet named Henry Wadsworth Longfellow needed a hero whose name rhymed with here, and Revere beat Prescott in the marketing department of literature. Number 2. The Thanksgiving Airbrush, 1621 versus the myth. The wholesome image of the first Thanksgiving, pious pilgrims and noble Native Americans sitting down for a harmonious turkey dinner, is a masterpiece of historical airbrushing. The event that inspired the myth was a 3-day harvest festival in 1621, and the Wampanoag tribe wasn't even on the original guest list. The Wampanoag leader, Massasoit, and 90 of his warriors showed up only after hearing celebratory gunfire and cannon blasts from the English settlement. Fearing a battle was starting, they arrived prepared for war, not a potluck. While a shared meal did eventually happen as a diplomatic gesture, casting it as the beginning of a beautiful friendship is a deliberate lie. This single, cautious meal is used to whitewash the brutal reality of the following centuries: broken treaties, the Pequot War, and the systematic displacement of the very people who saved the Pilgrims from starvation. We celebrate a dinner party to avoid talking about the eviction that followed. Number 3. Johnny Appleseed, the booze baron of the frontier. The legend of Johnny Appleseed portrays him as a quirky, barefoot wanderer who scattered apple seeds out of the goodness of his heart to feed hungry pioneers. He's the patron saint of the American orchard, right? Not exactly. The real man, John Chapman, was a shrewd land developer and a businessman. Chapman wasn't planting apples for eating. In the 1800s, apples grown from seeds rather than grafted were almost always small, bitter, and inedible. They were good for exactly one thing: making hard cider. Chapman was essentially the frontier's primary supplier of alcohol. He would travel ahead of the settlers, establish nurseries of cider apple trees, and then sell the saplings to newcomers at a premium. Why? Because frontier law required settlers to improve the land, to claim ownership, and planting an orchard was the legal gold standard of improvement. Johnny Appleseed wasn't a whimsical naturalist. He was a savvy entrepreneur selling booze and property rights. Number 4. The Mild West, The truth about gunslingers. Hollywood has convinced us that the Wild West was a land of constant violence, where steely-eyed gunslingers had duels at high noon and saloons were shoot-first zones. In reality, your average frontier town was safer than most modern cities, and it was significantly more regulated. Many famous towns like Tombstone, Wichita, and Dodge City had incredibly strict gun control laws. Upon entering town limits, visitors were legally required to check their firearms with the local sheriff. The romanticized one-on-one duel of honor? Almost non-existent. Most gunfights were chaotic, drunken brawls involving people who couldn't aim, usually ending in seconds with everyone running away. In fact, the murder rates in many western mining towns were lower than the rates in the big cities back east. The Wild West was largely a creation of dime novels and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, designed to sell tickets to bored city dwellers. Number 5. Pocahontas, the Disney Deception. Thanks to decades of animated movies, we picture an epic romance between the brave colonist John Smith and the Native American princess Pocahontas. It's a tale of love bridging two worlds. The reality is far darker and, frankly, much creepier. Pocahontas was a child, likely around 10 or 11 years old, when she met the 27-year-old John Smith. There is zero historical evidence of any romance between them. The famous scene where she saved his life by laying her head over his was likely a fabrication Smith wrote years later to boost his book sales, or a misunderstanding of a tribal adoption ritual. The true story of Pocahontas is one of tragedy. She was kidnapped by the English at age 17, held for ransom, forced to convert to Christianity, married off to a tobacco planter named John Rolfe, and died of disease in England at age 21. She wasn't a romantic heroine. She was a political pawn who never saw her home again. Number 6. The Prohibition Loophole, a ban for the poor. During Prohibition, it was illegal to drink alcohol. We've seen the movies, the feds smashing barrels and the mob running speakeasies. But that fact is fundamentally wrong. The 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act made it illegal to manufacture, sell, or transport intoxicating liquors. They did not make it illegal to possess or consume it. This created a massive loophole for the wealthy. If you had the money to buy out an entire liquor store's inventory and stockpile it in your cellar before the ban took effect, you could legally throw boozy parties for the next 13 years without ever breaking a single law. Prohibition wasn't really a ban on drinking, it was a ban on the trade of alcohol, which effectively meant it was a ban on being poor and thirsty at the same time. While the working class was drinking dangerous bathtub gin, the elite were sipping legally owned vintage wine. Number 7. The Manhattan Swindle. $24 worth of confusion. The story of Manhattan being bought for $24 worth of beads and trinkets is often told as the ultimate swindle, a testament to Dutch shrewdness and Native American naivete. However, the entire story is based on a massive cultural disconnect. The Lenape people did not view land as a commodity to be owned forever. They viewed it as a shared resource. To them, the sale was likely a gift exchange meant to seal a treaty for the Dutch to share the land, not an eviction notice for the Lenape to leave. Furthermore, the $24 figure is a wildly inaccurate 19th century calculation. It wasn't the deal of the century. It was a conversation between two groups speaking entirely different languages about what ownership even meant. The Dutch thought they bought a house. The Lenape thought they were welcoming a roommate. Number 8. The signing that never happened, July 4th. Picture the iconic scene. July 4th, 1776. The Founding Fathers are assembled in Philadelphia, stepping forward one by one to sign the Declaration of Independence. It's the birthday of the nation. It's also a complete fantasy. While Congress did approve the final text on July 4th, nobody actually signed the famous parchment version that day. That elegant document hadn't even been written yet. The grand signing ceremony didn't take place until August 2nd, and even then, many delegates weren't in town. Some signatures weren't added until months later. July 4th isn't the day the document was signed, it's simply the day everyone finally agreed to stop arguing over the wording. We celebrate the signing on the 4th because in the world of PR, a single dramatic day is much easier to sell.
Number 9. Columbus, the lost and late explorer. Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. This isn't just an inaccuracy, it's one of the most successful marketing lies of all time. First, you can't discover a continent that is already home to millions of people with thriving cities, trade networks, and complex governments. Second, even by European standards, Columbus was late to the party. Norse explorers, led by Leif Erikson, had established a settlement in Newfoundland, L'Anse aux Meadows, nearly 500 years before Columbus was even born. To top it all off, Columbus never even set foot on the continent of North America. He mostly bounced around the Caribbean islands. He died still believing he had found a shortcut to Asia, which is why he called the locals Indians. He wasn't a pioneer who found a new world. He was a lost navigator who bumped into a continent he didn't know existed. Number 10. The cowboy myth, whitewashing the West. The American cowboy is the ultimate symbol of rugged individualism, a lone white frontiersman riding into the sunset. This image was carefully curated by 19th-century dime novels and later by Hollywood. The historical reality was much more diverse and much less glamorous. Being a cowboy was a low-wage, grueling, seasonal job. Most were the 19th-century equivalent of underpaid farmhands. Crucially, the image of the cowboy was almost entirely whitewashed. Historians estimate that at least 1 in 4 cowboys was black. Many more were Mexican vaqueros, the original cowboys, from whom American settlers borrowed almost everything: the hats, the saddles, the lingo like buckaroo and lariat, and the entire cattle-driving culture. The myth erased the diverse faces of the West to create a single, marketable hero for a divided nation. We've peeled away 10 layers of patriotic fiction, the bedtime stories a nation tells itself to sleep better at night. But looking at the truth doesn't make the history less interesting, it makes it more human. When we stop looking at the founding fathers and pioneers as marble statues, we start seeing them as people, shrewd, messy, and often just as confused as we are. American history wasn't a clean line of progress, it was a chaotic, high-stakes gamble held together by ink, ego, and some really good advertising. So, which of these myths do you think we still need the most? Or is it time to trade the legend for the truth? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories you thought you knew.